Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. So this is just an introduction to um, the video. So, anyways, I have this what I think is kind of a profound talk about divinity, finding divinity within you, and things to do with religion, and all these things that are tied to all the downfall of our current civilization. But you may want to skip that part. Some people, it's a voiceover. So if you want to go right to the political coverage and some of this other stuff, then you can fast forward till you see this image, which is the MSNBC dopes. But for the rest of you, here is the other part. Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. Today is Saturday, August 17th. This video probably won't be up till Monday if I keep with the regular schedule here. And so I got an epic comment I want to start with. Of course, my traditional things I have to say, not a traditional, but new thing I'm saying. I just released this video. Must see low functioning people in the apocalypse, uh, Ketchup Gate, and there's much more here. Ketchup Gate and Kamala's and Walsh's bizarre interview. And so there was a comment somebody just left. See if I can. Oh, here it is. See if I can find it here. That's not it. The person wrote, Paul's, oh, how I missed you, bless you and your family. And so this is, again, all these people are being notified because YouTube is, not shadow banning me as much. And so, again, the ways to let YouTube know that you're still interested in my channel is leave comments. It can be just something as simple as one emoji or whatever it might be. Liking the video, I think, is probably the biggest thing. And then other things you could do, share it on social media. And then, just in terms of promoting the channel, there's merch, which I should be mentioning more often now. And there is a membership program. And, of course, subscribing, resubscribing, hitting the notification button, all the things that you have to do. Bookmarking the channel. You have bookmarks in pretty much every browser. If you bookmark the channel, all my channels, but at least the main one, then you can find it later on if they stop sending you notifications or whatever. Because sometimes the search engine doesn't lead you to my channel, which seems bizarre, but I'm the Pockets of the Future, like original and biggest Pockets of the Future out there, right? So it's my term, and there's been other people who've used it for various reasons but it was my original term, and then I have the most subscribers and the longest standing channel and all that, and yet YouTube sometimes doesn't allow people to find it. So I think that's happening less and less now, but before people couldn't find the channel. But anyways, there's this epic comment I want to get to here first, and then the rest of these things here. And so the person writes here, let me make this a little bigger. The person writes, this is what happens when agnostics and atheists attempt to enlighten the rest of us. You get this kind of nonsense. In my video, Trump Elon exposed the lies behind Ketchup Gate and Band-Aid Gate. God is real, and there is no divinity in you. If there were, we would have found it by now, and the world around us wouldn't be in the state it's in. Well, people find the divinity within them all the time. It's just that they don't cultivate a relationship with it, right? But for a person to say God is real, but there's no divinity within you, is the stupidest thing ever, right? Because if God is real, then there has to be divinity within you. like this is just dumbass religious stuff that people don't even know the teachings of their religion. Okay, so just a little bit of a history here. The Bible, the original first line of the Bible, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. So pretty much everybody acknowledges in all these different religions that God is the creator, right? God is the creator. Also, God is the father. So, the God not as the mother as much, God both the father and the mother, but mostly the father in the Christian religion, right? So in the Christian religion, in the beginning, God created the heaven and earth. That's King James Bible, first line in the Bible, right? The second one is God said, "Let us, Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, make mankind in our image after our likeness." Well, is everyone going to look like the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, or the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost? Well, if he's talking about the Holy Ghost, that's a soul, right? And so the Holy Spirit. And so making everybody in their image is not that you're all going to look like Jesus. Like everyone's going to look like Jesus. Everyone, even women, are going to have a beard, and they're going to have long hair and look like Jesus, right? I mean, that's the Jesus of the Bible, not the real Jesus, right? The real Jesus was Jewish and lived in the Middle East and didn't look like a blue-eyed European guy. So in the Catholic tradition, which is the original Christian religion, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Um, you know, Catholicism was the original religion, and Christians forget this. Like I get Christians who say, "Oh, you were raised Catholic, not Christian." Well, the Protestant religion. So there's a question here from Google, which is older, Catholic or Protestant? The Catholic Church is the oldest of the two groups, as the modern church was founded when it split from the Eastern Orthodox Church in 1054. So that's 1,054 years after Jesus was born, right? So Catholicism was the original religion, and all the teachings that came from Catholicism migrated over to the Protestant, the Bible. And of course, it was edited and changed and these things, right? And so in the Catholic tradition and in the Bible, it talks about God as the Father. And so if God is the creator and the Father, then what did he create? Some piece of crap? You're some piece of crap. All the people are sinners. He created all these sinners, and that's on God, right? Then you don't suck. God sucks. If God didn't create, if there's no God in you, there's no divinity in you, then how could, you be created by God? How is God your Father? Because God is all of our Father, not just Jesus's. That was the problem with this BS teaching they try to perpetrate on, or they successfully perpetrated on all the Christians, that Jesus Christ was God's only Son. When Jesus talks about our Father, is all of our fathers, right? Because there's no only Son. They just made it that way because it gave them a sort of a, monopoly on heaven and all these things, right? And that they could, push this agenda because of this narrative. But God is our Father, all of our fathers. And so everyone knows that biologically, your father, that line of genetics is inside of you, right? Like in terms of when your biological dad, your father, and that's part of who you are. But if you grow up with like a stepfather, like Joseph or whatever, Joseph was a part of Jesus, right? Because your parents, you integrate them into your etheric, your psychological makeup and all these things, right? And so God is a part of you because, you think about God, you know about God, you read about God, you feel love, which is God, and that's a part of you. So God is already inside of everybody. So if somebody's saying, like this stupid-ass comment, right? I mean, it's just really sad and pathetic, right? That this person would think this. This is what happens when agnostics and atheists attempt to enlighten the rest of us. You get this kind of nonsense. God is real, and there is no divinity in you. I mean, that's the saddest thing ever. Like, how could God be real and there be no divinity in you, right? You have no divinity. There's nothing there's no part of you that's the divine creator that created you. Of course there is. He's your divine Father, right? And there's a soul. Like your religion believes in a soul. And again, the soul came from ancient India. It's called the Atman. The Atman is a much better word in Sanskrit, right? Beautiful word. And so the original word for soul was Atman. And that was discovered in terms of the modern human beings like 200,000 years ago, like before the Mahabharata, which was 5,000 years ago, right? They want to make Judaism the oldest religion. And I started to research this maybe 10 years ago. And I said, what's the oldest religions? And it said Judaism came before Hinduism. But the Mahabharata was 5,000 years ago, before Judaism even started. And the Mahabharata was the second incarnation of Krishna, or another incarnation of Krishna. There's been like 10 of them. And the Ramayana, Rama was an earlier one. that was like 100 to 200,000 years ago. And there's these ancient teachings, the Vedas and things, and that's where the soul came into existence, the Atman. And so the idea of the soul. And the soul is the divine essence that manifests your ego, your mind, your brain, your consciousness, and also your physical body, right? And so the soul, which is called the causal body, comes from the etheric world and manifests a physical human being, right? And so the soul is divine. And so we all have divinity within us. How can you believe in a soul and say there's no divinity within you? Your soul is what? Your soul isn't an ego. Your soul isn't human. Your soul is the essence of your etheric being that animates your physical body. And so how sad it is that somebody would believe in God and not believe that there's divinity within you. And saying we would have discovered it and fixed these issues, that's just the opposite. Divinity is manifest when you're first born, when you're an innocent baby, right? Everyone loves babies, right? Babies are pure and innocent because they're pure soul. Their egos and there's some skaras, their past impressions from previous existences, their personalities and things haven't formed yet. And, they're divine in their innocence as a newborn baby. And then they just get shittier and shittier after that, right? You get more egotistical, you get more selfish, you get more me, I. And you forget about the divinity within you, right? But people do have moments, of course, saints and higher developed souls, they have, people who have worked on this connection to the divinity within them. There's been, documentation of this over and over again. This is saintly people, loving people, people who, express the divinity within them and, find the divinity within them and cultivate a relationship, right? And you have moments, everyone has moments where you have desperate moments of, trauma and fear and, loss and where you're overwhelmed by life and you go to God and you connect to God. You really pray, you really, are looking for a connection with God. You feel God's love and God's love is coming through you. And you have these communion points with divinity within you. And I've had so many of these from doing the Sajmark system. And so has all the other people who do the system. And, you want to keep it. You'd go to a gathering, one of these, Sajmark gatherings, and you'd leave just like saturated with the divinity that's, within you and the transmission that's given. And you see it everywhere. Like you're just in this loving state of just, you're beaming with God's love. And then you just go back and you'll go back to work and you do your mundane human things and you just can't hold it, right? I mean, it's like sad, like it's a state of the human condition where people will find a way to connect to God or they'll be desperate and they'll connect to God and they'll feel God's love and presence and they don't hold it. They don't cultivate it. They just they just piss it away, right? And that's the problem with human beings. So it isn't that there's no divinity within you. It's that people don't want to embrace their divinity because their egos want to make bad choices. Your egos don't want to do what God wants you to do. I mean, that's just simple human nature. That's our big problem. That people want to make their own wrong choices. And they know they're wrong choices and they want to do it anyway. Like, you're making the wrong choice, but you do it anyway. And do you think about all the tragic flaws that human beings have exhibited, right? The tragic flaw in the old Greek, whatever it is, tragedies, where the human being just can't help themselves because of their samskaras, their past impressions, and they can't, rise up to a higher level. And so that's why human beings suck, because there is divinity within us and we do connect with it. And then we, piss it away. We just, all right, that was good for a little bit. Let me go back and make more mistakes, right? Let me go back and exercise my freedom to make the wrong choice, which God has given us. So what this person is talking about is their bullshit religion, right? Because the religion is manipulating and claiming something that it doesn't have. Divine providence and, the monopoly on, heaven, and they're the only people that can get you there, and the system and the practice of, Christianity or any of these other religions. They would lose all their power and influence if they told you the truth that divinity is within you. And so even though their books are riddled with this, like all these religions have the fact that you have a soul. They all believe in a soul. And again, they don't trace it back to the original teachings. the Vedic teachings where you can find the original understanding of the soul when it was first discovered, right? I mean, think about how animals don't have consciousness of a soul, and they don't realize that they're more than just a physical body, right? They don't have this level of consciousness. But human beings developed that level of consciousness. It was a huge breakthrough. That we're here temporarily, like in some video game, and there's a divine essence that is creating our bodies for some specific reason. And that's what a liberating idea. What a wonderful idea, right? And yet, people don't rise up to that idea, right? Because they just think about, oh, well, yeah, I got soul. But, they use the word soul in different ways, like soul crushing. You can't crush your soul. Your soul can't be hurt. Your soul is not physical matter. Like people think about all the ways that they talk about a soul. It's really they're talking about the ego, right? And I'm not criticizing the religion in the extent that if that's all you can do, that's all you can do, right? There's some positivity in it, mostly not at this point. If that's all you can do, that's all you can do, right? But there's plenty of like stuff to do with your religion, right? How many Christian YouTube channels are there? How many Christian truthers are there, right? Or whatever it is, right? People who follow a religion. And how many atheistic or New Age people are there out there that are, truthers or whatever. They have their channels, right? But I'm talking about something that's for people who can rise up to a higher level. The New Age stuff is about using spirituality to have a better life and to have more enjoyment, right? It's a very modern, liberal way to look at it. And so the difference between me and all those people from doing the Sajmark practice and Sajmark teachings is that this life, your physical human life, your person, your persona, your who you are, your path forward, is not about the pursuit of happiness. It's not about being happy. It's not about indulging. It's not about pleasure. It's not about living your best life. It's none of those things, right? It's finding the divinity within you and suffering the things you have to suffer to help you become a more and more congruent person in terms of your soul, the divinity within you, and God and the rest of it, right? That your ego and the divinity within you and the overall and God in general is coming together, and you're working towards, I shouldn't say working towards, but you're surrendering, your ego surrendering to the divinity within you and saying, okay, you guide me, right? I'm giving up my freedom of choice, and I'm making one choice, and I'm going to follow my soul's path, and I'll let God lead me and make the decisions for me, right? Jesus take the wheel, right? That's what that should mean, right? Where you're no longer going to make the wrong choice, egotistical choice. You're going to surrender to the divinity that has created your existence, and you're going to make only that choice which the divine creator wants you to make, right? That there's one right choice in every situation. And that's hard, and it's, not as fun, and it's, all this stuff about freedom. It's really the freedom to do wrong. The idea of freedom is demonic because you're given the choice, you can choose whatever you want to choose, right? You have an infinite amount of wrong choices in every situation. You're presented with these choices. And there's only one right choice, right? There's a choice your soul wants you to make. There's one choice that's going to keep you on your soul's path and moving forward as a spiritual being. All the wrong choices create obstacles and bring you on a divergent path that takes you away from your soul's path, your reason for your existence here, right? And the wrong choices are very alluring to your ego, and which we all know about. People have all know what wrong choices are, right? And some of the wrong choices are just subtle choices. But the only right choice is to connect to God and create a relationship, using your heart, using the instrument where you can feel God's love, right? Again, if you can feel love, then that's God. God and love are the same thing. Love is the feeling of God, right? What it feels like to be connected to God. And so if you feel love in your heart, that's God. And so when you feel love, you're having a, interaction with the divinity within you, right? And so when you feel this love and this, connection through your heart, and you find a way to understand and communicate with God to the extent that God lets you know which is the right choice, it becomes very simple because it's very easy. God is simple. God is pure. It's very easy to figure out what the right choices are, right? It's just in every situation because it becomes more and more apparent as you cultivate this relationship. But people don't want to do that. They're choosing, even when they learn how to do that, they do it for a while and then forget about doing it, right? And I, from personal experience and what I've seen, there's a system, the Sajmark system, which is built to help people connect to God in this way. And, there's just the debacle of Daji and the heartfulness thing I've talked about in past videos. And, that's becoming a, egotistical driven religion. And, Daji's this piece of shit. And it's all this stuff I talked about, right? And it was hard for me to see this organization go in this direction. But then all these people, some of them very saintly, much better than me, much nicer, much more devoted, much more committed. And they, couldn't make the right decision, right? Because of their, their religious, their upbringing or whatever it was, right? The guru culture, whatever reason, their passivity, the Indian culture, whatever it might be, they can't navigate this issue. They can't, they can't figure out what to do, and they can't connect to the divinity within them and allow the divinity to guide them in some way, right? Which is for each person to determine. It's not for me to say, or for you to say. It's for you to do for your personal situation, me to do for my personal situation, my personal choices, right? But anyways, that path is there, and humans refuse to embrace that path because they want to have the freedom to do wrong. And so all this bullshit freedom talk you hear from these fake patriots or whatever, the patriot, people that call themselves patriots, it's really about having the freedom to do the wrong thing. And your religion helps you do that because it says you're just a sinner. So you're totally excused for sinning, right? You'll be nothing but a sinner. There's no divinity within you. How the fuck can God be your father and also be your creator and there's no God inside of you? And you also have a soul. Like, why did you never think about that, right? All the people who practice a Christian religion, how could they, Jesus says it himself, the kingdom of heaven is within. So you're calling Jesus a liar, right? This person, let me read their stupid comment again. And this remedial way of approaching life, this is what happens when agnostics and atheists attempt to enlighten the rest of us. You get this kind of nonsense. God is real and there's no divinity in you. If there was, we would have found it by now and the world around us wouldn't be in the state it's in. You don't think that if people found divinity that they would reject it, right? Just the way people reject the truth. You see this as a truther when you're presenting information that you think is a slam dunk to your relatives and they can't even understand what you're talking about and they're looking at you like you're crazy, right? People reject the truth all the time. Like right now you're rejecting the truth when I tell you these things, right? Because what I'm saying here is far more sophisticated than what your religion is saying. And I'm not saying what I'm saying is the absolute truth and it's the, the purest form of it, but it's a lot closer to it than what your religion's telling you. And, this isn't for remedial people that have they don't have the ability to look at their own indoctrination and their own prejudice and their own, limitations and expand their consciousness, right? There's a lot of content out there for dumb people. And I could, be a Trumper or be a QB or be a, a liberal or, any of these things, right? I could be a celebrity Hollywood worshiper and talk about celebrities. And I know what people want to hear. Like I have the gift to, say what people want to hear. To understand people in such a way that I could, make my channel I'd have billions of subscribers or I could do something like that, right? Just promoting these lies that the majority of people want to believe in because people want the lies. People don't want the truth, and everyone in the truth community should know that, including all the truthers, right? How many people really want the unadulterated truth about what a piece of shit you are and the bad decisions you've made and, all the truths that you're running away from, right? And the biggest truth is that there's divinity within you. People have a potential devil in an ego and a potential saint in the soul within them. And I say this all the time. People are scared of the darkness within, like that really negative, demonic, horrible person that could come out, right, in the proper circumstances like a war or trauma. People are scared of the darkness within them. They fear the beast within, right? But even more, they fear the soul within. They're much more, they're much more comfortable with the beast than they are with the soul. That's why there's so many horror movies, but not real movies about divinity. There's never really, there's very seldom a really good movie that captures the essence and the subtlety that is God, right? That is the divine love. I mean, there's almost no good spiritual movies out there, but there's lots of horror movies about the devil and about the potential demon within, right? There's a lot of movies and TV shows about the ego. Pretty much all of them are about the ego and the human tragedy and the darkness within. People making horrible mistakes. People going to the dark side. Like how many TV shows and movies are about the dark side, but there's none about the light. There's none about the divinity within you, because people don't want to hear that shit, right? Like people wouldn't go see a movie about that. Like that's why my channel has. I mean, these messages piss people off. They push them away. The Christians and whoever it is, atheists, whatever it might be, right? There's a very limited potential audience base. I would say it's about 10 million people in America out of 340 million or whatever it is, right? And so I don't know what percent that is, but it's it's less than 1% of the population can understand and embrace these types of concepts. Even just think about them. Like, imagine me saying these things that God's within you and you could cultivate a relationship, and that pushes people away. Like people don't want to hear that shit, right? And so, like what the fuck, the fuck, right? So what's going on that's the case, right? Where when I talk about divinity within you, people say, all right, I got to turn this thing off, right? I got to turn this thing off. I can't listen to this. This guy's he's telling me there's divinity within me. In fact, I'm going to leave a comment and say, no, there's no God within me. This person just left a comment saying, we don't have God within us. God is either everything or there's no God. God is either nothing or everything, but there's no in between, right? And if, there is a God, then God has to be everything, right? God has to be in everything. Every atom, every, person, every animal, every, divinity has to be everywhere. If we have a soul, then there's soul energy behind everything, right? That means to animate life, there has to be soul energy. In any animal, any creature, anything that's on this earth, there's soul energy that's animating. It's like computer code, right? Like the computer code is the real truth, and what you're seeing is an illusion. And that's what planet Earth is. If you don't understand that, that's fine, but people who do need to, rise up to it, right? And they don't. And that's why, the planet is where it is, right? Where people who understand this and could rise up to it don't. There are people who are on that level who can rise up to it, and they either they dabble at it, they flirt with these ideas, but they don't really embrace it, and they just it's just a little vacation they take from their ego from time to time, and they flirt with the divinity within them, and then they feel like, wow, I'm a spiritual person. Well, not if you're just flirting with it, not if you're not fully embracing it. Anyways, let's move on to the other stuff here. Okay, so let me just continue here. I took a little bit of a break and these ideas came to me. I was watching a video, which I'll explain in a moment here. But this person writes this, comment and says this idea here. God is real and there is no divinity in you. If there were, we would have found it by now, and the world around us wouldn't be in the state it's in. And so I addressed this idea, so the person puts out an idea, right? So his evidence for no divinity within you and within himself is that we haven't found it, and the world would be a much better place if we found it. So he is, in his thesis, this idea of all right, this is my reasoning for no divinity within people. Because if people had divinity within them, they would have found it. And as soon as they found it, they would be transformed into saints and good people and would never do a bad thing again, right? Right? And so, it's a stupid thesis. People don't have the ability for critical thinking skills. And so what did I say? What was my answer? Everyone has found divinity within them, and then they embrace it for a little bit, and then they forget about it, reject it, whatever. And that's a great answer. That's what you get here. That's a brilliant answer, right? And not because I'm brilliant, because I've had the good fortune of connecting to divinity in a way through the Sajmark system, where I was a completely incompetent, underachieving, fool or whatever, with a bad attitude. I wasn't negative and angry. And I couldn't have given that answer then. And so it was the blessings I received from the Sajmark system that allow me to just know the right answer, right? Like the answer just came, which is, to dispel and destroy that person's argument. Because there have been saints and higher developed souls that have connected to the divinity within them who have fallen. And then there's everybody, like pretty much anybody who's experienced love, and not everybody does, but anybody who's felt love, right? They say God is love, and that is correct. I mean, the feeling of love is what God is, right? The feeling of love is what it feels like to connect to God. God is the energy that is love, and that's how you feel it. Like when you connect to God, the feeling that you get in your heart where you well up and feel love, right? How many times have you felt in your life where you've connected to God? Like, maybe you're sitting in church and you have this epiphany, or you're wherever you are. Like you have these moments of like just a different level of feeling and consciousness, and you realize you're communing with God in some way, right? Like almost everybody has some sort of experience like that, an experience of God. And so like it's a great answer because yeah, we have connected with God. And what do we do afterwards? And why don't we keep the connection going? So that's an answer that I can only give because of my experience, not me, personally, but anybody who's done the Sajmarg meditation and understands the philosophy. Somebody in the Christian religion couldn't do that because it's forbidden to talk about things in this way, and they don't, you don't conceptualize in that way, and there's no flow to it, right? Have you ever had the experience where you think about somebody you love, or some kind, and you just have this gush of feeling? Like I had this for 3 nights recently. I woke up in the middle of the night, in the Sajmark system where preceptors are, these ideas of being a preceptor and being a conduit, where you allow the divine energy to flow through you, and there's a spiritual work that's done. And I just felt this transmission like flowing through me. And I'd go back to sleep, and I'd wake up, and I would feel it. And it's just this, feeling of love, right? Just this, just being saturated with this feeling of love, right? And it's a wonderful experience. Like, and then, I woke up the next day, and I'm, shitting all over politicians, and, having my, whatever I do it for my job, right? I mean, it's not like when I'm being loving or something like that, but there's these experiences, and they're great to have, but having this continual experience of this divinity flowing through you, and it's where all the great parts, all my great lines, all the great things I say, the jokes, all the flow that's there. There's a flow that people experience on this YouTube channel. There is the second master of the Sajmark system, Babaji. He was a babu or a clerk, so they called him Babaji. There's lots of people called Babaji. It's a kind of a common name. The J-I is put on the end of somebody who's like an elder, and somebody who's, looked at as like a saint or somebody, esteemed. And he was a simple guy. He was a babu or a clerk, and he dropped out of school at a young age because he wanted to get his information directly from the source. And he was very simple and loving. He smoked this hookah, and people used to come to his house in northern India, and he'd serve them food. There was no money charge. He didn't even accept donations and things. And he had people coming from Europe and America and all over India, and they'd stay at his house, and he'd, accommodate them and, feed them and, transmit this divine energy to them. Very simple, right? Just he'd sit around smoking his hookah, giving these like brilliant answers. And one time he came to America, and he was asked by somebody, maybe it was Europe, it was somewhere in the West. He was asked by some young person, young European or American, does God exist? And he said, who is this God who is not? Right? This Dr. Seuss-like answer. Who is this God that is not? And it's like a phenomenally brilliant answer, right? Because anything that exists in the outside world must first exist inside of you. And so, like anything that you think or feel, like if you call somebody a name, well, that name has to exist inside of you, right? There has to be a reference point for that name. Like my brother once called some guy an asshole in front of my brother's kids. And the guy said, you're really disrespectful, and you're setting a bad example for your kids by using that kind of language in front of them, right? And my brother said, no, I'm not. I'm teaching them. And the guy said, what do you mean? He goes, Well, my kids are going to meet my kids are going to meet a lot of assholes in their life, and now they have a reference point, right? If you go to a zoo, right, and you see a tiger, like you had to see a tiger before to know what this thing is, right? But you look at it, go, it's a cat. It looks, it's big like a lion, whatever. Like now you have a reference point. Like when you're a kid and you go to a zoo and you see a tiger for the first time or whatever it is, and now it exists inside of you, right? And so everything that you experience in the outside world exists inside of you, and things that exist in idea form. And so, like this idea of who is this God, who is not, right? Because there's a word called God and you just used it. So, yeah, that exists because we're talking about it. Whether it's real or not, or, it's some guy sitting in heaven like people think, or whatever it is, even if it's something imaginary, it exists inside of you. So many people thinking about God and believing in God, even if it was an illusion, like believing in Santa Claus, right? People believing in something. It exists, like you see it in a movie or a TV show or wherever it is, in some artistic rendering, right? So it's a phenomenally brilliant answer because he's not trying to sell you something. In the Sajmark system, there's no selling of anything because it's a service, right? Now, in these religions, they're selling you something because they're getting something from you. They're getting your money, they're getting your fealty, or they're getting your passion, your work, whatever it is, right? So religions want more people for that reason. But in the Sajmark system, you're receiving this transmission and this service that is given to help people connect to God. And because of that, the flow that's available is completely different. Because, I've experienced, I tell people about it all the time. I've been talking here on this YouTube channel about Sajmark. When I, first experienced the benefits of the system, I told all my family and friends, my brother started, which was, was kind of a burden for me. Like my brother, he didn't feel the energy, and he started because he thought I joined a cult. And he was trying to, I don't know, that's what he says. But he would call me up, or we'd talk. I'd call him up, and he'd thank me for telling about the system, how great it is, and then he'd crap all over the system and complain about the people in it. He was more involved with the organization, and he was a caretaker of the ashram, right? And he, would complain constantly, and it would just bum me out. Like it was just all this negativity, right? And like, well, why don't you tell the master about this? He'd be like, no, I don't want to see you as a complainer. But like, it didn't stop him from dumping his complaints on me, right? And I'm saying this because he started, but it wasn't better for me that he started. Like in some cases it was. Like, he was there, and there were the good things about it, but it was kind of more or less a burden for me. And the people I've told about this thing, my kids, all these people, it became sort of like a burden and whatever, right? And, I didn't want them feeling like they were doing it for me or, these things. Like it's a gift. The people who can do it, it's a gift. People who've experienced it. And there are some people here in the YouTube channel. But it's not better for me if you do it, right? You're not doing it for me. Like I wouldn't want anybody to do it for me, right? Because it has to work for you. Like, I'm telling people about it, and you're going to have your experience of it. And your experience is your experience. And I can't have that experience for people. You understand this? But for those of us who have been, who've experienced the benefits of the system, it is unparalleled, right? And so I, did the original audio before this one. And somebody who I believe heard about Sajmark from me sent me a video clip of the third master of the system, Master Charji, when he was in Molina, Georgia. It says Charji visit to Molina in 1996-2, and it's PG photography. And, I started watching it, and I was there when Charji was there, and it was just one of his classic talks. And I was, really getting into it, and I decided, I had some of these thoughts of what I'm talking about here, right? And it looked like it was going to rain, so I was going to take my dogs out before it rained. And I thought, all right, I'll put this in here, write this in here, because it's a transformational idea that divinity exists inside of you. That the idea of God is there, and the energy and the feeling of love is there, right? And so people have the ability to experience, God. Like going back to this idea that whatever you see in the outside world has to be inside of you. There's this story, and I'm not sure it's true or not, but, when these Aboriginal peoples, there were ships coming over from these European ships, and these Aboriginal people had no reference point to it. There was, people who could see the ships, like the medicine man, and the ships were coming over to, conquer these people, and the medicine man had to explain the ships to people, and then they were able to see it, right? Because they had no reference point to it. And you see that all the time with people you talk about, with all your truther stuff and your relatives. People just don't have a reference point for it, right? There isn't any idea that they could believe in these things. And so the idea that God's inside of you is, essential. And if you can't even understand that or believe in that, then your life is like pointless, right? Like, I guess, maybe you're building to something, but it's the first step to being like a real human being, evolving out of the animal kingdom and becoming somebody who understands that there's a spiritual reason for your existence, and that divinity is within you, and you can connect with God and and cultivate a relationship so you can make these decisions, right? It's the best thing I have to offer here, because people in America and Europe and these places, they don't get it, right? It's Christianity is against this idea, even though Jesus taught the kingdom of heaven is within, like I said before, and still they're against it, right? It's my book, The Friend Within. One of my books, it's in the description box. It's a book for kids, and the idea that God is within you and God is your friend, and what a wonderful and powerful idea that is. The book should be selling like hotcakes, right? I don't talk about it here, but it's actually like a great book. I had this experience years ago. My kids, my family went to visit some people who do the Sagemark system, and they had like two young kids, like a baby and a girl. She was a little bit autistic, like she was functioning, but she had some issues, and she read the book. Someone read the book to her, like my daughter read. I gave the parents the book, My Friend Within, and the girl like loved the book. She was like asking all kinds of questions about it, right? Like profound questions about God and divinity within you. And my two kids, they were like, probably my daughter was like 12. They were my two youngest kids. And my son was like 10, or maybe he was 8. She was, they're 2 years apart, right? She was probably about 7 or 8, and he was probably he had to be about, he was probably 8, she was probably 10, my son and daughter. And they both came up to me and said, "Oh, this is a really good book." This girl, like, when she got into it and asked these questions, and I was feeling it, I'm like, "Oh, wow, this is a really good book," right? I'd forgotten about it. I had, talked about it. I don't talk about it here. But like every kid should have this book read to them with the idea that God is within you and God is your friend, right? And so Master Chargy would give the example that, there would be a squirrel who had buried some nuts for the winter, and it would starve to death digging for the nuts it had buried in the ground, and it would be inches away from finding them, right? And just, and this idea that there's a solution to everything within you, divinity within you, and cultivating a relationship, and people either don't want it or experience and reject it, or, their egos or whatever it is, right? Or don't even understand that exists. And it's, it's the answer, right? It's the best thing that I have to offer. And very few people, rise up to it. Like, out of there's so many people that listen to my videos, they want to hear me make fun of Britney or, mock the president. That's fine. Like, that is what it is, right? But very few people want to take the highest and best thing I have to offer here and talking about how God exists inside of you. And that's just sad, right? And that's, it speaks to where we are as a people. And that, you have, all these lonely people, miserable people who can't figure life out, and you're going into the counseling field, going to psychiatrists or psychologists and taking prescription drugs or self-medicating and living miserable lives, and, not finding a point or a purpose to their existence, and, just all these lost souls out in the world. And there's, the divinity, God's with you all the time, right? And people just even, making that small leap to understanding that divinity is within you, and they just can't do it. And it's just, and that's just the starting point, right? And most people don't even reach it to the start. It's just whatever. Kind of depressing. So let's get into more depressing shit here. Okay, so I'm going to conclude this at the end of the video. I'm going to talk about aliens and why people are scared of God. But let's get into the other stuff here. Okay, so let's get into it here. In my last video, I showed you where Trump said that he doesn't read from a script because it's kind of hard to hold an audience when you're reading from a teleprompter, right? Which, of course, it is. And, it's very stale. And, the stuff that they're going to write is to keep you out of trouble. A lot of politics is just to say cliched, hollow words and, just generalized ideas of what everybody thinks, things that almost everyone will agree with, right? Or most people will agree with. Certainly the majority of your voters will. And independence and things like this, right? But Trump always has to feed red meat to his base, which I talked about, because he loves the adoration. So he's always getting himself in trouble because they have a teleprompter there. They wish they did. And if he stuck to the teleprompter, they would have all this, information, all these things that he's saying that would be things that wouldn't get him into trouble. So then this happened, like right after I got the video done.
Donald Trump appears to have insulted recipients of the Medal of Honor. The comment was one of the first things he said when speaking at an event yesterday at his golf club in Bedminster, New Jersey, about anti-Semitism, while praising Miriam Adelson, who he awarded the Medal of Freedom back in 2018. He then argued the civilian award is better than the one that is given to soldiers.
I have to say, Miriam...
Okay, so this is one of Trump's big problems because Israel is perpetrating a genocide right now against the Palestinian people. And I'm not, one of those people who've always been slamming Israel and, blame Jewish people for everything, as many of you know. In the truth community, there's people like that and, whatever. But it's obvious that it's a genocide. And there's an article coming out that they're secretly doing a land grab on the West Bank. And this is MSNBC, very pro-Israel. While the world's eyes are on Gaza, Palestinians see a land grab underway in the West Bank. They see it because of this, right? This is Greater Israel. This is the Israel that we think about now. And the rest of this is the Israel that's the promised land in the Bible. And this was inevitable. There's evangelical Christians and hardcore Zionists that believe all this land is Israel and it's promised to them by God. And Palestine is the first part of that, right? And so Trump comes out with 2 Israeli flags next to the American flags, and he certainly got he's more supportive of Israel than Kamala, who's married to a Jewish guy, right? And Kennedy's even worse than both of them in terms of his support for Israel. But let's get into his gaffe here.
I watched Sheldon sitting so proud in the White House when we gave Miriam the Presidential Medal of Freedom. That's the highest award you can get as a civilian. It's the equivalent of the Congressional Medal of Honor, but civilian version. It's actually much better because everyone gets the Congressional Medal of Honor. That's soldiers. They're either in very bad shape because they've been hit so many times by bullets or they're dead. She gets it, and she's a healthy, beautiful woman. It's right.
You're loving it. Don't look like you're all bummed out. This is like Christmas for you guys, right? And so, let's listen to what they're going to say here.
Mike, I don't know in the history of American politics anybody that I've ever heard say anything remotely as callous as that, but it does line up with what General Kelly, his longest-serving chief of staff, said, that he told him he just didn't understand why people would serve and sacrifice for their country, and also what Jeffrey Goldberg, in quoting people that served with Donald Trump, talking about how Donald Trump said that people who died were losers and suckers, and he didn't want to go to the cemetery. Here you have him saying, the civilian honor is a lot better than the military honor, because to get the military honor, you're either shot up or dead. I do wonder what all of those...
So what Trump said is true. And a lot of these people believe it. A lot of these people don't want to volunteer for the military because they know it's a scam, right? They know you're going to get abused. They know you're going to get taken advantage of. And so what Trump is saying, even though he's dickish about it and he can't say stuff like that because he's the commander-in-chief, right? But it also speaks to the, to Band-Aid Gate and Ketchup Gate, where they're talking about where Trump is, being seen as a guy who's saying fight, fight, fight after he's been shot in the ear. We know he wasn't shot in the ear because Trump can't imagine some physical trauma. He's kind of a puss, right? You can't imagine some physical trauma in terms of, sacrificing his body for his country, which again, there's a lot of evidence to support what he's saying because it's a fool's errand because you're being abused by the people who control the country who don't love you or respect you. You're not fighting for America. You're fighting for wealthy people and corporations and things, right? And Trump knows that, and all these people know it, but Trump's the only one who says it. And, he at the same time, he's all patriotic and he's all big on the military, so he's stupid in saying this thing, right? But it's kind of the truth, right? But they're making it into something that's really not, because what he was basically saying is, if you're going to get this award, you can get the award from him, which is the same level of award, and the awards are stupid, or you can get the military honors award and be, crippled or shot up or dead, which is, it's not a good thing for him to say. It's a major gaffe for him. But, it's kind of funny because it's true, right? It's like, somebody being honest without really being honest, right? This is Trump's legacy, but he shouldn't have said that thing. Okay, so this is from the White House of President Barack Obama. The Presidential Medal of Freedom. Somehow they've made this YouTube video private for whatever reason. Maybe because he gave Ellen DeGeneres the Medal of Freedom. So this is the same medal Trump's talking about, right? Robert De Niro, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. These are Bill and Melinda Gates, right? These are the people that Obama gave Michael Jordan, Tom Hanks, right? Grace Hopper, and all these people who, these people were never soldiers. There's a big difference between getting your arm blown off while you're doing something heroic that Trump is minimizing and making fun of, than this bogus award given by the president to people who work for the party. Bruce Springsteen, Vince Scully, like none of these, Cicely Tyson, right? 2015 recipients. This was 2016. And, these are people, some of them have maybe done something, more than just be a celebrity. Willie Mays, right? But none of these people, Barbara Streisand, Steven Spielberg, right? James Taylor. And so these are people that Trump wouldn't give the award to, right? And Trump's giving the award to people who are supportive of his worldview and give money to the Republican Party, like Sheldon Eldenson and his wife and things like this, right? And so these are people that, are no way Meryl Streep. A lot of these people are celebrities or athletes or something, right? And so this is no way equivalent to giving somebody an award for military service. And I'm not a person that, is big pro. I'm an anti-military person, right? And I don't buy into the bullshit patriotic narratives that are, you should serve your country when you're really serving these rich people. Bill Clinton got Obama gave Bill Clinton a Medal of Honor, right, or whatever it's called. And so, Medal of Freedom. Dean Smith, so Gloria Steinem, Oprah Winfrey, right? And so it's a bogus award. This isn't like a real award. Bob Dylan, right? He's this bogus astronaut actor who faked like he went to the moon. And so these are people, Pat Summitt, female basketball coach. And so these are the ones Obama gave. He gave one to George H.W. Bush. So, like, he's given, so just think about, all those things, right? So these people are not the equivalent to heroic soldiers. And Trump is trying to make this award better than the award that's given to soldiers. And, like, he's supposed to be the pro-military right-wing guy. He just keeps on stepping in it, right? He's a moron. I'm against awards and trophies and things like that. In fact, when you get them, it's almost like you're asking for something bad to happen. Like it's always some fake ass shit, and it's just, whenever you get something like that, and you watch football players or basketball players when they win the MVP or they win an award, they always play like poorly. Almost always they play poorly, or something happens. They get injured, or it's just you want the opposite. Like, criticism motivates you to do better. I mean, when you have critics and you have haters and things, it gets you going. And but when people start giving you awards, this is like I'm going to show you. There's a great video of Joe Biden coming out to these tech influence internet influencers, media people that are pro Biden, and they got their phones out. It's just so goofy and fake, right? And they're celebrating this guy because they put him out to pasture. But this award that the president gives is just a political award. There's Angela Merkel in there. I didn't even see her when I was going through it the first time, but I saw it when I was editing. I'm editing here. And Trump just says stupid shit, right? There's got to be a point where Trumpers are like, oh my God, you hear what he just said, right? Like, I mean, I know they never will, but this is, he's thumbing his nose in the face of these people that are his supporters, and they're so pro-military, and they're so pro-patriot, they're all patriotic or whatever, the Republican patriots, as they think of themselves, right? And he's mocking you, right? Like, right in your frickin' faces. And he just says stupid stuff like this, and he's on the ropes, like he's doing a bad job, and Kamala sucks. I mean, losing to Kamala, I mean, of course he'll say he's cheated or whatever it is. He'll find out for some reason it's not his fault. But if you lose to Kamala, bro, you're like the biggest loser of all time. Because let's get into Kamala right here. Okay, so I started doing this video yesterday. Today's Sunday, August 18th. And I somehow didn't tape the beginning part of this, right? So I must have had it on pause, and I unpaused it, later on. And so I missed part of this, right? And so the only thing that I have to say about this, well, it's defining blackness, real talk with Kamala Harris and Uncle Luke. And when I first watched it, YouTube recommended this to me, so I thought it was new. It's actually from 4 years ago. And this is when Kamala Harris was running for president. But I didn't know that until the end of the video, the end of this segment of the video, when you guys are going to hear when I discover that it's from 4 years ago. So just so you understand why I'm going to record this differently now, because when I started it off, the first part of this, when up until the point she talks about Howard University. But she was in a position back in 4 years ago where she had to win over the black vote because, well, listen to what this guy says right here.
Game,
Yeah.
and you're just sitting on the sideline, you really don't understand the difference, the nuances, and the struggles of trying to do the right thing for our people. When I wrote the article about you, and I just outlined everything that
See, she's saying way too much.
every black man in the barbershop, black woman would talk about in the conversations, because I always go back to it, because basically everything that everybody was saying about you, whether she's black enough, does she like black men, she's putting black people in jail, the common things that was actually said.
So, but he's saying that she actually goes to the barbershop, and I'll do that in my follow-up video, my next video, because that looks like that's going to be promising. But understand this, she's running for president, and she's losing to Joe Biden, right? She's losing to Joe Biden, who is a old white guy who's said a lot of weird racist kind of stuff, right? The stuff with corn pop and, old white guy racist who grew up in a totally different era. But somehow her and Cory Booker were losing the black vote to Joe Biden, right? And so she has to defend herself because her ethnic background is, she didn't grow up in she grew up in a unique situation with an Indian mother, a Tamilian mother, mother from Tamil, who's a Brahmin, and who is a professor, who's someone who's highly educated, and her father was a Jamaican guy who was highly educated, and she grew up in college towns and in Canada, right? And she didn't have the kind of experience she now wishes she had, where she could, people who are in the black community could identify with her. And so she did go to Howard University, and she did get her first break by, servicing an older black man, so she has that going for her. But for the most part, she has a very, she has a very unique background and upbringing. Like I bet you won't find another person in America whose mother is Indian, Tamilian, from South India, and father is Jamaican. And if you did, you'd find like maybe one or two of them. Like how many couples out there are Jamaican and Indian, right? And so, the education level and all these other things. There's not, there's not that many Jamaican people to start off with, a small island, right? And so, and plus she has, her grandfather was great-great-grandfather was an Irish slave owner, right? So like, she's got a lot of weird stuff going on, right? And she wasn't connecting with the black community or anybody else. Nobody really liked her. And so she had to do interviews like this to try to win over this demographic. And so Trump should be destroying her, and he's losing ground, right? Today was the first day she polled higher than him in the general election. And so, like, she's gaining on Trump. She's hiding herself away. And Trump had that epic, convention where so many people believe the false bullshit story of him getting shot in the ear. The guy should be running away with this thing. And he's losing ground, right? To Kamala frickin' Harris.
But at the same time, I write that, and I didn't have a conversation with you. When we had the conversation, and we talked about it, we talked about the different things. It was almost, and after the conversation, I felt like I was actually certifying you because we were talking about fried
He's giving her street cred. What this is about is street cred, right?
chicken and talking about all these different things. And then we talked about the gun and the FICA score and these different. So it was
That's
like,
right.
okay,
That's right.
it's like, I like this lady. You know what I'm saying? She's about everything that we're about, the struggles and the things that we have to deal with on a daily basis as activists in our
That's right.
community.
That's
And so how did I come to that place? And then that's when I ended up writing the other article saying, okay, this is this.
Right.
You know, because, again, we get to the point where we prejudge a person. So then now I'm out here fighting the fight of the same thing I basically wrote, and I'm trying to convince people that, no, that was wrong. Let me ask you, so when you're campaigning and you're doing your strategies and everything, and you're trying to prove to African American women that you're black enough and African American men that you're black enough,
she's got to do this, right? Like, think about this. And, she's married to a rich Jewish guy. And so, that doesn't help her case, right? Because she's taken a very unique situation where most people can't identify with her, and she's very off-putting in terms of her personality, right? And people just don't like her. And then she marries, somebody who's totally outside any of those demographics she's trying to reach, right?
you know who Kamala is.
Yeah.
You've been you forever.
Yeah, right.
And you lived a life, and you lived in the neighborhood. You
That's
went to the
right.
black university. You lived a life as an African American. That have people question that. How you really
That's
feel
a great
about that?
question. It's very frustrating. That's a great question. Because to your point, exactly to your point, Uncle Lou, it is.
See, she's getting this certain, Obama way of talking, right?
I know who I am.
I know who I am.
I was raised to have pride. I mean, I could go on and on about
Right,
who
right,
I
right,
am, right?
right.
But and who I was born as, not just.
She was raised to have pride, right? Pride is not a good thing. Like, Americans love pride, but pride is actually detrimental to your spiritual development, right?
Who I became. It wasn't like some process of enlightenment. Like
Right.
this has not been a process of discovery for me. In fact, I think the frustration is that other people want me to take them through their process of discovery.
Exactly.
About
Boom.
trying.
She was. This was before they told her to tamp the laugh down.
to understand it.
Right.
And it's a challenge. I mean, but this is look, all of us who have become the first, part of the challenge is that
The first.
people have their boxes about who people are. It's in their mind. They have this set of boxes, and they're trying to figure out which one do you fit into.
She fits in the one that involves knee pads.
Right? But the number of boxes they have is limited to whatever they've seen before, usually. Right? And we're asking them to see something that they've not seen before, and then figure out where to put that. I might give you an example, because
Give an example.
I have thought about this. If I use this phrase, just close your eyes for a moment and then think about what you see. The boy next door.
Boom. Look at how profound that is. The boy next door.
For most of America, what does that look like?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's the boy next door. 4 words speak volumes about the age, the look, the character of who we're talking about.
You're right about that. Yep.
What 4 words would immediately let you know about who I am?
Kamala Nipaz Harris. I knew this was coming. Kamala Nipaz Harris. Those are the 4 words that would let you know exactly how you got to where you are and what you're about.
It's not in the vocabulary.
It's not. When people question your blackness, you were on that bus, you were part of the civil rights movement, but the struggle is convincing people that this is a strong black woman who lives a strong black life, and why is there any question?
You're right. It's frustrating.
Well, that's not completely accurate, right? Because of the 2 factors that she was raised by an Indian mother. That was her primary influence, the Indian community. She talks about that. I showed that in the last video with Mindy Keeling. And so we know that she has that heavy influence. And like I said, I've been to the area in India for 3 years. I was multiple trips to that part of India, and I'm familiar with that specific Indian culture and the Indian culture in general, and Indians who live in America. I've known people like that for over 30 years of doing the meditation, right? And so, I stayed at their houses occasionally and, things like this, right? And so I know what their culture is about. It's a very unique culture and strong culture, and she grew up in that culture. And she might not embrace that culture. I don't know how many times she's been to India herself, and maybe she has, maybe she hasn't. I'm sure she's been there, a few times. But that's part of it. And also she grew up in college towns because her family, her dad was a professor and her mother worked at the university, and they're highly educated people. And she grew up in college towns, and she grew up in Canada. So he's making it like she had, an urban life where she has street cred, and she doesn't have street cred, right? Like she grew up with privilege. And, those college towns are a very unique environment.
There was this one journalist who said to me, I'm doing this interview, and he says, well, you have family members that went to Stanford and Harvard, but you chose to go to Howard. No, elite schools like Stanford, but you chose to go to Howard. Now, I was ready to hang this thing up.
She was ready.
Right.
I was literally, I was about to go off, which would not have been cool, because I'm trying to get elected.
Yeah.
Yeah, you didn't even get 1 vote.
Yeah, but you went to Howard.
But
Yeah.
they went to these elite schools, and you went to, and I said, well, you do know that Howard University is the Mecca.
Exactly.
Just put that, let's put that in its place. And so the frustration, to be honest with you, is that, sometimes I'm like, look, I am not running to be Black History professor. I'm running to be president.
Yes, she is, except she didn't. She dropped out without getting 1 single vote.
Right.
And you all need to figure this out. And you need to figure out the diaspora. People would say that, and I'd say, I went to Howard University, and let me just tell you what that is. If you stand in the middle of the yard, looking around campus, you'll see young Black students who are walking around in lab coats. They're in the School of Medicine. Over there walking around with briefcases. Over there in leotards is the School of Fine Arts. Over there, right?
So, what college campus do people walk around in lab coats and with briefcases? So here's Howard University, right? These are, backpack wearing. There's some agricultural stuff going on. Campus, cheerleaders. We don't see any lab coats or briefcases because college kids don't carry that shit, right? Like there's not very many. Maybe there's a few people in college that carry a briefcase, but it's not normal to do that, right? Here's a bunch of students here. No lab coats or briefcases. Bunch of students over there, right? And so, like, that was just weird what you said, right? Like, it's not, no one thinks about briefcases when you're in college.
Arts over there, right? And so your limited view of who people are, don't put that on him because you don't have the ability to see, right? The variety and the diversity and the depth of who we are.
And it's sad that people still think that way.
Look, there's still so much,
Because, Harvard University is a standard. I was watching a little bit about the movie The Social Network, whatever it is, the movie about Zuckerberg and Facebook. And they started off with Harvard, and there's nothing worse to me than those places where these, really rich, old money families, and they're Yale and Harvard and these universities where they go into, become players and people in the system, right? And, that's what people think of as the standard of greatness of Stanford and the West Coast and Harvard and Yale on the East Coast of these Ivy League schools. And so Howard doesn't, rank amongst those schools. It might be just as good as those schools, right? But that's not what people think. But that's not the issue here. Like, who cares that, what people think about Howard? I mean, there's this person asking this question, why didn't you go to one of these elite schools? Well, whatever reason she chose Howard, that's not what they're talking about here. They're talking about she doesn't have any street cred, right? Like, even after going to Howard.
Work to be done that is about, breaking barriers and showing people what success looks like. And it's not that 1950s Mad Men version of success.
Right.
Like that is still very much in the mindset of a lot of the American public, whoever they are.
It's exactly like Mad Men, because I didn't watch the show Mad Men, but I know that it seemed like there's a lot of sleeping around, right? Which is how Kamala got her start. Like Kamala, like you see these lines here, these are gurgle lines. Like Kamala Kneepads Harris got her start because she dated a much older man, a guy who was 60 when she was 29, who was more than twice her age, and he gave her all these, these prestigious jobs because he was a kingmaker, a queenmaker in California, right? Brown, whatever his first name is. And so that's how she got her start. And there's no, like, walking that back, right? Like when a girl that's half the age dates a man of power, and that man gives her a Mercedes-Benz, and he's getting out of a marriage with his wife, right? They're separated. We don't know the exact timeline. And she dates the guy for 10 years, and that makes her career. And without that, that's how she got her foot in the door to being eventually a national figure and in these prominent California state positions, right? And so, like, that's part of who she is. And that doesn't matter whether she's black or white. I guess it matters that she's a woman. Whether her ethnic background is, this is like a woman who's basically, sold her sexuality to get an advantage, a leg up on her competition, and her, make her into somebody who's in one of these prominent positions, right?
Whatever their race or gender, that's what success looks like.
Mm-hmm. Being that you from the same hood that I'm from, which Miami is no different than Oakland, no different than Baltimore.
Okay, she's not from Oakland, right? She didn't live in Oakland. Her parents were wealthy people. Her mom worked as worked at these universities. Her dad was a professor. Like, they were not, wealthy, like businessman wealthy, right? but they were making a good income and they were upper middle class. And a lot of these positions come with, housing, right? She didn't grow up on the streets of Oakland, right? That's not where she was, right? Like her mom, I mean, they were, these were, they had PhDs and, there were people who were teaching at universities, and her mom worked in a research lab, right? They weren't poor. Like, no one would say she was poor. Like, and she, to make it sound like she grew up in the streets of Oakland. So Kamala Harris's family had money, right? And so here, Kamala Harris, this is when she lived in Madison, Wisconsin. That's where she was when her parents were together. And then she moved to Berkeley, California, where Berkeley University was, right? And so this is her, when Kamala Harris was a child of Madison. When Kamala Harris was a little girl growing up on the far west side of Madison, so she was, Madison, Wisconsin is where the Badgers are, right? So her dad was working at Wisconsin University, right? When Kamala Harris was a little girl growing up on the far west side of Madison in the late 60s, she loved running out the back of her family's small home and carefully making her way down all the steps that led to the shore of Lake Mendota. Kamala, Mendota. And so she had lakefront property, right? She lived in a place where she lived on the lake of, this, prominent lake in Wisconsin by a college town. This is this lake here, right? And so this isn't like, she's not growing up in some inner city slum. Okay, so just to get a sense of this is Realtor.com, homes for sale in Madison, Wisconsin. This house is a $1.7 million, 200 a small cottage, $235,000, right? That's probably some rental cottage, $530,000, vacation home. These are both worth millions of dollars. I mean, look at the real estate here, right? $375,000. Like this, she didn't grow up in the hood, right? She grew up on a lakefront property in Wisconsin. Even if she had a poorer house, this is the neighborhood there. There's going to be low crime there. It's a vacation rental, right? This is an apartment building, which is, the apartments there are going for $600,000, right? So this is, none of these things are cheap. That's the stuff. This is what, obviously some of these are nicer houses than she grew up in. They're modern houses. But this is lakefront property in a college town. It's far cry away from, she doesn't have any street cred for growing up in Wisconsin on the lake, right? Kamala Harris' childhood in Berkeley shaped her. She lived in Berkeley, California, this is Berkeley, California, right, where the University of California is, right, at Berkeley. And so this is a beautiful college town right close to the ocean. And, her mom was not, they weren't in poverty. Like she never grew up in poverty. Like that is a claim that she wants to make. But she grew up in this nice college town, this kind of place, right? And so it says here, long before Vice President Kamala Harris became a national figure, she was a resident of Berkeley Flats and a student of Thousand Oaks Elementary School. Harris, 54, lived in Berkeley until the age of 12 when she moved with her family to Montreal. She came back to the USA after high school, graduating from Howard University and UC Hastings College of Law in San Francisco, right? So she lived here after she moved from Wisconsin, and her parents got divorced when she was 7. She then came to live in Berkeley, California at the age of 12 and went to this Thousand Oaks Elementary School. And you notice that the kids there are mostly white, right? So this is, this is this school. Look, they got look at this place, right? So this is not some poor inner city school, right? Kamala Harris visits Berkeley. Take a look around Berkeley where Kamala Harris has left her mark. This is the place, right? This is California, UC Berkeley campus is where her mom worked, right? A childhood friend paints a picture of Kamala Harris' upbringing. There was a little girl in California who was part of the second class to integrate her public school, and she was bused to that school every day. And that little girl was me. Carol Porter, a childhood friend of Harris, said she was the other little girl on the bus. Porter spoke of All Things Considered host Ari Shapiro. We lived in a very multicultural community that was really beautiful, very working class to lower working class. Harris was confident, and she was nice. The Shamala that I remember as a child, she was the air of confidence about her. She's talking about her mom. She had an air of just integrity and strength. When you saw Shamala, you said, "Hello, Miss Harris." And so, she's trying to make it sound like she was bused from the inner city. Have you ever heard of a rapper claiming to be from Berkeley, California, right? You ever hear people compare Compton to Berkeley, right? And so she didn't grow up in Oakland. Here's Berkeley and here's Oakland, right? And so this is, they have like San Francisco and they have Oakland, and there's the Bay Area and, across the bay and all this stuff. I've been out there. There's an ashram over there in Silicon Valley, which I was, but this is not, here's San Francisco over here. Silicon Valley is, somewhere over here. And she's, she grew up in this upper, suburban college town, right? And, they're trying to make it like she's from the streets of Oakland.
When you address the issues of gun violence, because you understand it. And that's why I tell people all the time. Yesterday we were having a conversation with different people, and it's good. I like that because it's authentic and it's genuine when people share their thoughts, whether you put it on social media or not, and you have a back and forth dialogue. Guns in our community versus guns in the community that's down the street from my house, which is Parkland.
That's right.
I believe it's a false choice to say you either believe in the Second Amendment or you want to take everyone's guns away. That's how I think about gun safety laws. Assault weapons ban. So here's how I think about it. The assault weapon was designed to kill a lot of human beings quickly. That is its whole purpose for being. And there is no room for that on the streets of a civil society.
But people aren't carrying those things on the streets, right? And the Second Amendment's about this was when they had militias. And it's about not having a standing army, which we weren't supposed to have, which of course we are the number one military, and the people being able to stand up against their government if their government became whack, right, became crazy, like it is now, right? So that's what that represents. Those are the American ideals.
It is a weapon of war.
No question about it. No question about it.
The leading cause of death of young black men in America is gun violence, and literally greater than the next.
Those guns are, for the most part, illegal. They're unregistered, illegal guns, right?
9 combined. So of the variety of health or accident.
Okay, so here's a couple of things. Again, I'm not a pro-gun person. I'm not a big Second Amendment person. You get rid of all the guns in the world as far as I'm concerned, right? But you can't have it where one group, the military and the police and the government, are armed and the civilians aren't. Because you see what happens when that happens, right? Look at what happened to Native Americans, right, for example. According to April 2024 PBS News article, 54% of illegal traffic firearms in the United States between 2017 and 2021 were sold by unlicensed dealers. The report also found that these guns were used in 368 shooting cases, with almost 60% of the recipients having a prior felony. And because they had a prior felony, they couldn't own legal guns, right? According to a study conducted by the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, about 80% of the firearms used in crimes are legally obtained. Of course they are. Because if you use your gun that's registered to you, which they can confirm through ballistics, then you're screwed, right? Then that gun, if somebody steals that gun and uses it, you're kind of screwed, right? And so when you have a gun registered to you, your name, you can't use it in a crime. If you're going to commit a crime and you're going to have a getaway car, you don't use your car with your license plate, right? Like they can they can track you. So the majority of criminal activity involving guns need to be a gun that is unregistered or not registered to you. Unless it's a crime of passion, you're going to use an illegal gun. And the majority of those deaths are illegal guns, so your assault rifle bans are not going to stop that from happening, right? Because those guns are still going to be on the streets, but people aren't going to be able to protect themselves from criminals who have those guns, right? And again, I'm not a pro Second Amendment person. This is just common sense, right? Like, I'm not a big person with that. But this is, our reality.
That cause death for young black men, the gun violence is greater than all of the next 9 combined.
Wow. The data shows that our kids are getting killed in the daytime. You have education. So when the standardized testing, everybody just focus on the test. So what ends up happening is now the test is connected to the grade point average of the school. So in order for the school to stay open, you have to be at least a C or B school, because a lot of the charter schools have taken a lot of kids out of the public schools.
Yeah,
so now you have this big, massive public schools that, really was built to hold 2,000 kids. Now it's only 500 kids.
That's
And so now those kids are going to these charter schools. Charter schools are letting them out at 12 o'clock in the daytime.
Really?
Really? Kaboom. Let's watch your face here.
Those kids are going to these charter schools. Charter schools are letting them out at 12 o'clock in the daytime.
Really?
He sounds like that's kind of shit Trump says. Right? The stuff he's saying. She's like, that sounds a lot like what Trump says.
Public schools,
That's interesting.
the public schools are kicking the bad kids out with a low GPA because they need to have a high GPA.
And they're going to those charter schools.
They're going to those charter schools.
That are
and,
kicking them out.
And they're out at
Isn't that
12 o'clock.
something?
Mama and daddy is now
course.
at work.
Of course.
And they end up at the friend's house doing whatever
Isn't
because
that
those
something?
are actually bad. They consider them as bad kids, but they should red flag those
Isn't that
kids.
something?
So if you look, and so I started looking at it on a national,
Wow, that's something.
on a national level.
Okay, so let's go to the end of this thing, but what was the part that Kamala convinces this guy that she has street cred?
On Track, which was a program about getting jobs and counseling to people who had been arrested for drugs. Like literally,
That's
they
what
would
he told you about this. We saw this with Matt Lauer.
have been felons for life. And I said, nope, we're going to dismiss the charges against them. And the whole program is about jobs. It was about seeing these young men as fathers and I would say, I don't care if they're not.
She did it with it ended up being like 400 or 500 kids, 600 kids, and half of them dropped out of the program, right? So it had a lower success rate, and it was just something she is campaigning on, but it isn't a real thing, right?
I mean, I care, but even if they're not paying child support, doesn't mean they don't love their children. And so we're going to focus on that. We're going to focus on what we need to do around housing.
There's those gurgle lines.
We even had a whole program about it where I had trained them on landlord-tenant law and consumer rights so they know their rights, right? When I created this program, people said to me, what are you doing? You're supposed to be locking people up, not letting them out.
Yeah, nobody said that to you, right? Who would say that to you? She's working with other lawyers and people who are professionals and, maybe people have political aspirations. And nobody said to her, your job is to lock people up, right? She's all over the place with her policies. Sometimes they're liberal policies. Sometimes they're very conservative policies. They're whatever she thinks is going to benefit her politically, right? But nobody said that to her. Like, it's just silly. Like, nobody said that to her about her program. Her program was non-existent, which I showed you before. They barely had any participants in that program.
People said to me, why are you giving them jobs?
Giving men jobs is one of the things that Kamala Nepaz Harris does best. It's one of her signature accomplishments. It's one of her go-to moves.
Other people want jobs who haven't committed a crime. This mass incarceration system has to be ended. And that's why, as president, for me, it's about ending mass incarceration. It's about holding law enforcement accountable, both prosecutors, police and prosecutors, because people talk about police, but also prosecutors.
Right.
And it's about what we need to do to take the profit out of the prison system with these for-profit prisons.
Oh, yeah.
And the
Yep.
profit out of the whole system around bail and money bail, which means that people are sitting in jail every day simply because they don't have enough money to get out. But people who have money for the same offense are walking around free. That's economic justice as well, criminal justice, right?
Yep. Yep.
Yes, no doubt about it.
So these are the things. But I know the system, and I know that as president, look, let's look at who's on that stage. Before they were running for president, who was working on reforming the system for decades besides me?
Yep.
You've got
And
folks like
they had opportunity.
they had
They had
opportunities.
opportunities to do different things.
But
So I'm editing this on Sunday, August 18th. But yesterday, when I recorded this, you'll hear it at the end coming up. I had no idea that this was 4 years ago, right? I didn't know that 4 years ago. Oh, this is a great picture. I got to use this as my my thumbnail, right? But I didn't know that she was, talking about Joe Biden here, right? Because that was her primary rival. Joe Biden was in the lead. Joe Biden was the presumptive nominee. Kamala Harris, got a little bit of love in the beginning, and everyone took a look at her and decided they didn't like her, right? But she's saying she's the only one who's a reformer, and all these other candidates that were up on the stage with her weren't, weren't doing the reform she was doing, and that means mostly Joe Biden, because he was the guy who, like, everyone thought was going to win.
very few of them, before they ran for president, have a lifetime of experience and dedicating a career to reforming the system.
Boom, look at her.
And so, it's real easy for people to, my opponents are going to try and do that because, look, they're also concerned about, like, is she going to get the black vote? We need to try and
Why are they concerned by that, Kamala? Like, this interview didn't help you, right? Like, why are they? Like, address why. Like, why, right?
not make that easy.
Yeah.
We have to believe
One
that
door at a time.
and we have to also believe that these things are possible and not wait for people to give us permission
Right.
to believe it's possible.
Okay, so that's how it ends? Like, that's how it ended. Defining Blackness, Real Talk with Kamala Harris and Uncle Luke. This is from 4 years ago. And somehow it was recommended to me, so I didn't even know it was here. This is her. It got 676,000 votes. So this is her running for president against Joe Biden. And she was talking about him, how, like, these guys all had a chance to be reformists, and they didn't. So I thought this was new because YouTube just recommended it to me, which is bizarre. And so that's just wonderful. That's, like, epic. Like, she has to prove this stuff, and she couldn't. Like, she wasn't getting the votes then, and so this is the issue now, right? Okay, let's continuing on here. Today is Sunday, August 18th, and I'll edit this video and get it up on Monday. And so this is from Kamala Harris's official YouTube channel, and YouTube recommended this as well. And this is another video that's 4 years old. Kamala Harris visits South Carolina barbershop with Uncle Luke. Now, I'll cover this in my next video. I haven't watched it yet. I don't have time to do it this one, and I don't want to. I already showed you that one Dr. Luke thing. But, back 4 years ago, Kamala could not, she had to go out and cultivate black votes, and people were saying about her that she wasn't, she didn't have street cred and she wasn't black enough or whatever it was, right? Like, that was a thing, which now they're pretty much denying that ever happened, right? So again, I'll come back to that. But then there's this. YouTube recommended this morning to me.
Mentors come in many shapes and forms and sizes. And
Wait, what is that? What does that even mean? Is there a polygon? Is there a mentor shaped like a polygon? Or is there a hexahedron? Is there a triangle shaped? Like, what are you talking about, shapes and sizes? But then there's this. This is the killer right here.
so some of my greatest mentors have been men.
Yeah, they was. Like your greatest mentor was a man who was 30 years older than you that you were banging. They gave you 3 jobs in a Mercedes Benz, right? That was your biggest mentor. Knee pads, right? Knee pads.
And when all else fails, just remember there's this little piece of advice I will give you, which I give myself. When all else fails, just be lovely. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
No, they don't know what you mean. She's laughing. It's kind of forced. You're the only one cackling like that. This is career advice to young women. So, does anybody call Kamala lovely? Just be lovely. Like that cackle ain't lovely. I mean, it's not a word I would use to describe Kamala. And I don't think many people would. So that's, what she's doing.
She's a nation wrecker who is more liberal than crazy Bernie Sanders. You know crazy Bernie? He's pretty bad, right? She is
She's not more liberal. See, that's a complete lie and inaccurate, right? Kamala Harris is whatever her handlers tell her she has to be. I mean, she is running a much better campaign right now. Traditional campaign. This person says, I have PTSD and it's some kind of, whatever. But she's not liberal. Like, they're trying to put that on her, right? And, she's just whatever, with the way the wind blows, that's what she is. As long as she stays in power, as long as she's, she can be president or vice president or congresswoman or the attorney general, she'll morph into whatever needs to happen. She doesn't have beliefs. Like Trump, but worse, right? And that's much worse than being a liberal. But, he's not going to say that because his fans, the people that support him will never understand that, right? They understand liberal or conservative. And so they're trying to tag her with this unrealistic, not true, narrative.
substantially more radicalized than crazy Bernie. You cannot have her as your president. She ruined San Francisco. She ruined the state of California. She was the district attorney and she was the attorney general of the state.
She didn't ruin the state of California. She didn't ruin the state of California. That's Gavin Newsom, and that happened in COVID. You could say that she contributed as vice president, but California was wrecked by Kamala Harris played a minor role in that, what's ever happened in California. Right? They're just, it's just lies, right? Like, it's just Trump lying to his people.
I heard the other day, and this isn't anything, I'm just saying, they'll say he was rambling. I don't ramble. I'm a really smart guy, really smart.
Thanks. You know what smart people always do? They have to tell other people I'm a smart guy. Really smart people have to tell people that they're smart because you won't see it on your own. I'm a really smart guy. Like he's just imploding in his need to be loved, right? Like his campaign is tanking right now. And I thought it was temporary. I thought that, Kamala's, her, suckiness would catch up to her. Like Kamala's just being so unlikable and so unelectable. But Trump is doing the exact same thing that cost him not only the election 2020, but cost him the Senate. And, he came in with all of it. He had, when he was elected, I think he had the House and the Senate. But he lost all these things in various elections, and people who were supported by Trump lost elections more and more moving forward. Like Trump was a death curse to these down ballot races because he just won't stop doing shit like this, right? Like he just won't stop, doing things that his handlers are telling him don't do this. It's costing you votes, right? It's going to cost you the election.
I don't ramble.
Woo, he's a smart guy.
Day,
Woo, he says he's a smart guy. He must be smart.
anytime I hit too hard, they say he was rambling. Rambling. I get up and I make a speech. I go for sometimes 2 hours, 2.5 hours, because, people are waiting outside for 3 days, 4 days. You guys were waiting out there for a long time.
Okay, so people come 4 days ahead of time to get to see you. They're just staying outside the stadium for 4 days, right? Is that what you're saying? Like it's just lies, right? Nobody's waiting 4 days. Like this is rambling. They're not waiting 4 days. I don't know when they get there. I don't know how soon you have to get there to get into a Trump rally, because he does have big turnout, but it's not 4 days, right?
Front row Joes are waiting out. I don't know how you guys do it.
They bring them in because they obviously have money, the front row Joes, and they fly out there. They have money, and they're able to travel around, so they probably bring them into the front row, right? That's why they're front row Joes.
I feel I have an obligation to speak in a certain way and speak a little bit longer. How would you like it? A guy's waiting with his family for 3.5, 4 days. They have a tent, and the tent is set up. They have hundreds of them, and they wait. And then I walk in, speak for 15 minutes, and leave. I don't know, somehow. Would that be okay, North Carolina? I don't think so, right? They want me to speak all day. When I leave, I did one 2 hours and 15 minutes, and I'm leaving, and they're screaming, "No, sir, more. We want to hear more." I said, "I can't." I can't speak more. What the hell else am I going to say? Our country's going to hell. That's all I can say. We're a nation in decline. We were talking about that before.
So it's pretty tired, this guy, of something the democratic something, I don't know. Pretty tired. He's got PTSD, so this is going to go over well with Trump's military blunder.
Before, my phrases are copied so much, right? I use the term
stupid Democrats. It says pretty tired of stupid Democrats.
Oftentimes in closing, we are a nation in decline. We are a failed nation. And I think it's a beautiful phrase, although I don't like the topic very much. I don't like what it represents.
It's a beautiful phrase.
But there's a certain beauty. All of a sudden, all of these candidates, including Republicans, are saying we are a nation in decline. We are a failing nation. And I say, what the hell do they have to copy me for, right? But they have a lot of words that they copy. Many of our words.
Okay, you're copying me, bro, because I said this long before you, when you were president. I said this long before you, and not just me, other people in the truth community, like people who could look at the national debt clock, know that we're insolvent. It's even worse than that, because it's not that we're in decline, that we're insolvent, that our economy can't be fixed. The debt has grown in such, like, it's what happens. It's the end of a Ponzi scheme. The debt gets too big, and the lies get too big, and what you're doing to keep the economy and the system afloat becomes so evil and so deceptive that it's insolvent, and you're heading, it's just going to get worse and worse. It's like you have a problem and you don't face the problem. And everyone's had this in their life, and the problem just keeps on getting worse because you're not facing it, right? Like that's what's happening here with our country. We're denying the problem, and the problem is just growing bigger and bigger until the point where, it's not going to be something we can fix, right?
We were in the plane before coming in, and our people said, we went through a list. I think we're going to release a list. Let's release it. But so many of our phrases they copy. That should be a nice thing, not an insult. But crazy Bernie Sanders has said a lot of things, and one of the things he's arguing about is who's more liberal. And after about 2 minutes, he gave up. He said, this woman is nuts. Look, people say, be nice. Have you heard her laugh? That is the laugh of a crazy person. That is the laugh of a crazy. It's a laugh.
Okay, you are babbling, because you're hitting valid points, but none of these things are going to help you with independent voters, right? There's nothing that he said here that's going to help him. This is stuff that he's saying to people who are already going to vote for him, and that's Trump's problem. This has been his big issue. He keeps on pandering to a group that you already got their vote. Why do you need to go and win their vote again, right? You have to find other people.
Laugh of a lunatic. Have you heard it? They prohibited her. They prohibited her for laughing. I've been waiting for her to laugh, because as soon as she laughs, the election's over. But we're winning by a lot in Pennsylvania. I think the fracking got her. The fracking got her.
Woo, 47, woo.
But she has been prohibited from laughing. You know, she used to do an interview. She, this is who the hell laughs at an interview like that? You know, I'm interviewed all the time. I may smile. I mean, they're asking you questions about things that it's not really it's not like a comedy club. And she'd break out. That's one of the reasons she refuses to do interviews, I think, because she laughs. It's so horrible. No, it's so horrible. But
Someone yelled hyena.
you know, she hasn't done an interview like in 30 days or something like that. And I do one every day. If I pass, I just did one backstage.
He's doing one right now, like he's, you know.
One backstage.
What's going on with your non-existent
With a very good
wound here?
reporter. But you're supposed to, don't you sort of have an obligation? You know, you're running. They're going to try, this is her form of the basement. Now, the basement for him was good because, you know, they had COVID. They didn't want him to catch COVID. He ended up catching it anyway. But, you know, it's a very dishonest, the whole system is very dishonest. But she should be at least.
This dude's talking here. Watch this. This guy's talking with his girl. And, like.
Ended up catching it anyway. But, you know, it's a very dishonest, the whole system is very dishonest. But she should be at least talking to the press. She hasn't.
Anyway, so her form of the basement, which is true. They're definitely keeping Kamala hidden away, and they have the fake crowds and, you know, the whatever the crowds are, the fake enthusiasm. And, you know, they're hiding her away, and she's keeping her mouth shut, and she isn't laughing. I mean, she did laugh at that thing I showed you, but the laugh is, you know, they've definitely told her to tamp down that laugh. And it's a weird laugh, like Trump said, because she laughs at her own answers in a way that's, you know, no one else is laughing. No one else finds it funny. She laughs at stuff that isn't funny, right? But Trump is not doing what a politician, like, one of the good things about Trump was he wasn't a typical politician. And so he wouldn't, you know, what politicians do is they have a team of people that do a lot of polling, and they come up with these lines, these taglines, and, you know, simple lines, bumper sticker speech, you know, they figure out what people are upset about, in this case, the economy, and they find ways of just saying those things over and over again and creating these sound bites, and then, you know, refraining from saying things that are going to be like, you know, Trump's talking about the Medal of Honor, right? You know, just the stupid shit he does like that, right? And, you know, he keeps on doing this where she is being handled completely. And, you know, he's losing. Like, he's going to lose this election if things go in this direction. And I'm not saying that's bad or good because I don't know. I don't know who's going to be worse. They're both going to be bad. But, like, his inability to do what he's supposed to do, like what he needs to do to win, he's not doing it. He did the same thing in 2020. So Joe Biden had this press conference.
Joe Biden.
Woo! Woo! So he never got this response before, right? So they're giving him this, you know, they've put a crowd in there. Look at all these guys with their cameras out. So he's giving a press conference, you know, this is some sort of conference, and everybody's taping him. Like, they all have their phones up. It's so mechanical. Let's watch that again. Like, look how fucked this is. Because he never got this response. They're giving him this response because he withdrew, because he's, you know, got dementia, Parkinson's, and they're like, you know, trying to give him some love here. But, you know, this is like, this isn't real. Like, this didn't happen organically.
Joe Biden.
Woo! Woo! This never happened, where people stood up like that and were applauding him like that, right? After his debacle, it wasn't happening when they were trying to force him out, right? But all of a sudden they're giving him this, the way they're giving Kamala this, like this guy is some kind of like rock star. And then, like, you think he did that again, he did this wrong because he didn't get everybody else, but they told him to do this with his phone. He pulled it off. He's bald as fuck, right? That's so fucking bizarre, right? Like, that didn't happen. Like, he didn't do that on his own.
White House.
That's one of the most messed up, staged, unrealistic thing. Welcome to the White House, like he's some sort of a dance club, right? He's a DJ. Hey, party people, welcome to the White House.
Now, is that the real press or the fake press back there? That was a
It's
joke.
a fake press. It's a fucking fake press, bro.
It was a joke.
It was a joke.
I tell you what, I have a bunch of grandchildren, and with all due respect, they don't read the same newspapers or watch the same television I do. They listen to all you. Listen to all of you. Look, I want to welcome you to the White House.
So this is White House Creator Economy Conference. So these are supposed to be internet creators, right?
And I'm glad you're all here. The fact is that...
so that's what the reference to them being a fake press. Because these are internet people.
You are the future. You are the future. And to my grandchildren ranging in age from 30 down to, well, the little one isn't watching yet, but to 14.
What do you mean, the little one? The two little ones. You know, you're leaving out Hunter's baby, his stripper baby, his crack stripper baby. You said the little one isn't watching yet, but there's two little ones. There's two babies, and one of them's the one you wouldn't acknowledge.
It's you are the source of their news. And the more people want to go into your business than the other these days. What do you think when I retire? Where do you think I'm going? I got contacts, man.
Look at him. He's cracking himself up. At least he doesn't have the cackle.
The only thing I'm kidding. Anyway, look, my staff tells me that the creator economy is valued at $250 billion.
Woo!
I'd like to talk to you about borrowing some money from you all. And that...
the Hunter gravy train is drying up. Hunter's in jail. So I need some cash from you creators. And again, these aren't real creators. These are like the fake ones, right?
Expected to double in the next few years. You know, folks, look, you're tired of hearing me talk about it, but I talk about these inflection points in history, how history gets changed by mostly technology, and it changes it drastically. And think about it. Think about, I wonder if any of you, when you started in this side of the equation, you thought it's going to have the consequence it has. I really mean it.
You know, you guys have done everything in your power to censor people on the internet. I mean, he's been the worst censored president. And I mean, he threatened all these big tech companies to pull down content that was against him and his whatever it was, right? His policies and the rest of it, right? He threatened them with he was going to pull away their, they have some kind of a pass from being sued by sued for things that are put out on their sites, right? So if everything that's negative on the internet, on Facebook or YouTube, or some kind of lawsuit would be involved. If YouTube or Facebook were being sued, right, they couldn't exist. And Twitter and these other companies. And so Joe Biden and his people, it's Title something or other, Title something, I forget what it was, was part of the Kennedy hearing. He threatened to sue them or pull this away from them to get rid of this, they have some kind of, they're exempt from being legally responsible for the content. You think about all the content where people get hurt when they try something that somebody posts on Facebook or YouTube, right? All that kind of stuff. And so if they were liable, they couldn't exist. And so Joe Biden, his people censored them, right, and threatened them, and that's how he got them to start censoring all the rest of us. And so, like, he's, for him to come out to these young people like he's a part of this, when he's completely against it, right? He needs the mainstream media, but nobody watches that anymore. The average age of people watch MSNBC is 70 years old. Same thing with CNN and Fox. So he needs these people, but they're not, they're people like me and you and the rest of us, right? And so, like, they've lost this battle. I mean, Trump has too, because, this is the young people that are not loving Trump either, right? These people have aged out, right? Trump is a Fox person, and even though Fox never loved him, but Trump is old school media, just like these other people are.
Think about it. It's staggering. And they're changing not only what people listen to and what they put their faith in, but what they're doing, they're also changing the idea of what's consequential and where they go and what. And one of the things that.
What does that even mean? Like, what the fuck did that even mean, right? Let's listen to that again.
Put their faith in. But what they're doing, they're also changing the idea of what's consequential and where they go and what. And
what does that even mean, where they go? You mean they go to the internet and not to CNN? That happened a long time ago, Joe. Like, that happened 10 years ago. Like, it's already, this.
One of the things that I found, at least as I've tried to stay current,
There's a blue light here. They got blue light on them.
Is that you all understand that you have an obligation to record what you think is true and say what you think is true. And
see, when people say this isn't the real Joe Biden, why would he be like this then, right?
But we've sort of divided into competing camps. Now I know I only look like I'm 40. You can smile. Okay, but I've been around a long time, and it's never been.
You're old as fuck when you have to tell people, when you're lying about your age and you say I look like I'm 40, and that's a joke. Like, it's like he's making a joke, like he's not, really lying to saying he's 40. It's like how ridiculous it is to look like 40. Like 40 is young. Like that's when you're old and you're like, yeah, I know I look like I'm 40. Yeah, you don't look like you're 40. Well, then you're old as fuck, right?
Been this bad before. I don't mean the press. I mean the way we treat each other in politics. And it's literally getting incredibly difficult to count the number of lies people hear. They don't know what to believe. They don't know what to count on. But you break through. You break through in ways that I think are going to change the entire dynamic of the way in which we communicate.
You're thinking that the internet's going to reduce the amount of lies and the amount of vitriol? Are you like freaking, are you that brain dead? You think the internet is going to make those things worse? The internet's going to be less divided? Like, the internet is the worst of the worst, right? It's pulled out the worst in people and anonymity and the rest of it, right? Where people just go on the internet to, like, they have this inner darkness and evil inside of them, and they just want to dump it on other people. I mean, that's what the internet is like. That's about 50% of the internet.
And that's why I invited you to the White House, because I'm looking for a job.
You made it funny.
I thought I might be, anyway.
You're laughing at him because he lost his train of thought? That's not a joke. That's Tim forgetting what he was going to say.
I asked my team to send me a write-up of your conversations today, and because I want to hear from you. Look, the innovation and entrepreneurial spirit in this room is what makes America America. I know you've heard me say this before, but when I spent an awful lot of time with Xi Jinping when I was vice president, and over 80 hours alone, just he and I talking. I turned in all my notes, by the way. And we were near the Tibetan Plateau for real.
For real. I'm not, it wasn't like we weren't.
In China with him. And he asked me, he said, can you define America for me? And I said, yes, I can. I know it's all on record. I said, yes, I can. One word. Possibilities. Possibilities.
So one of my viewers sent this in for this specific part. Like, he just... Possibilities. America's fucked, right? And the world's fucked because the economy and the breakdown... It's the breakdown of morals, the moral decay, and the breakdown of the human beings is the bottom, the base of the collapse. But the economy is also there. The economy is insolvent, and just all of it. Like this is your president. Like you should know that you're fucked when this guy's your president. And the two people running are just as bad. And they're not senile. They don't have Parkinson's, but you're just as bad. And they're in each individual way. And all of it's bad. Like all the people running for political office, and everybody's behavior, and everyone on the internet, and everyone at Walmart, and it's the breakdown of our civilization, right? There's not something to save. And so the possibilities are no longer there, right? Like we've become something. It isn't like what's possible is, what we can become. We know what we are. We suck, right? Like we suck. We're the evil empire, and the world is collapsing, and people have gone in the wrong direction collectively. We're selfish, entitled, all these negative things. The possibilities we already know what we are. We already know what the product of this system is, right? This modern day economic system. And it's not a good product. We're the product, and it's not good.
When you go around the world, as many of you have, they look at America like, these guys can do anything when they set their mind to it. It's just a nation of possibility.
That's not what they say about Americans. People don't like Americans abroad. They like American money when you're a tourist. They don't like Americans.
And change. And you are the new possibilities. You are the new breakthrough in how we communicate. And it matters. And for example, when one of your colleagues interviewed me I've been fighting the drug companies for a long, long time, since I was 200 years ago when I was in the Senate.
I look 40, and I'm the 200. Like it's more believable that you're 200 than you look 40.
But all kidding aside, when I was a United States Senator, I spent a lot of time trying to take on the drug companies. They charge exorbitant profits. Exorbitant amount of money.
Prices. So the word you're looking for is not profit, it's prices. But his brain doesn't pull. This is word retrieval that the guy who... I showed you that video of he describing all the symptoms that he has that shows that he has Parkinson's. And one of the words was getting the correct word retrieval. And he's like, we all have this as you get older. But his problem is really bad, and there's an example of it.
And a lot of people are in real tough shape. The American taxpayers paying billions of dollars they shouldn't have to pay because they Medicare. And what's happened is...
What was that? What are you talking about? You mean prescription drugs? They're paid, again, he didn't articulate that correctly.
I was interviewed by one of your colleagues, and it was about insulin. And I was I was walking through a retail establishment, and the guy came up to me and said, "Well, I thank you. I take insulin, it's now $35 instead of $400. He talked about how it changed his life and what more is coming. That got more coverage about what I've been fighting for in terms of fair drug price than anything had done. Everything else was done. Everything.
Woo! Okay, that's not true. What got more coverage? Like when you had that bad debate, right? And you broke down and you've completely failed. But anyways, this is JoJo Magoo. They're still rolling them out at these fake events where everything's... these were supposed to be content creators, and they're all, doing their fake stuff, right? Like it's just, classic JoJo Magoo, and classic, modern day politics where everything has become more and more staged because the stagecraft and the ability to stage things has grown, right? We see it with Kamala and her crowds, and we see it with Trump and his ketchup gate and his fake shooting thing. Okay, speaking of Trump's ear, Spirit of Halloween over-the-ear fake blood capsule fits snugly behind the ear. Just slap with your hand to scare friends with the most realistic blood ever. $12. And so you just put it behind your ear, and I guess you're supposed to cover it up with your hair, and you just smack it, and the ketchup comes pouring out. I think Trump has something more sophisticated. Okay, here he is, Cory Feldman, Loserville Video Diary, Day 9, day off into D.C., It's Sea Dog. It's Sea Dog 22.
Hey, what's up, everybody? It's me, and I am here now, finally.
Hey, everybody, it's me. You know, he sounds like that kid.
Great! And apparently, I've never been on live television before, but apparently sometimes I don't watch I don't watch the news because
He sounds like the apparently kid.
I'm a kid, and apparently every time, Grandpa just gives me a remote after we watch.
Apparently, he sounds, that's what.
In front of the new bus. That's right, this is the new bus. We finally got it. Looks much better than the old bus because it's actually a nice, working, air-conditioned.
Apparently, it's a nice bus, and it's actually working at a nice bus.
Bus. And thanks so much to our sponsor, X5 Podcast, for helping that happen. That's right. X5 Podcast came in and saved the day. We'll talk about it when we do the podcast, but Charlie, who is part of the podcast,
He's got a tour bus. He's making enough money and getting enough people come to his summer tour that he's got a bus. Feeling patriotic, right? All the checking out my future digs, White House in Washington, D.C., feeling patriotic.
and an excellent dude, actually is the one who helped come in and deal with these bus people and make sure that we got the bus we deserved, which is like the other buses on the tour. It's a pre-boast instead of a poor boast.
And then here he's in Washington, D.C. Look at this. What happened to your mangel? He got rid of his mangel. Now he's got this upstanding young woman, this classy dame at the Washington Monument. And there he is.
Okay, here we are in another. Hi there. Okay, well, as you know, I've been on tour here. We've been going all over the United States, and we are now in front of my house, which is all the way back in Washington, D.C. Of course, that's where I'll be living very soon. Soon enough. My home away from home. Good old White House. That's right. Anyway, plan on moving in any day now. Maybe in like 8-10 years, something like that. And then I can look out my window and see that guy. You know, I always like having a big, hard object right outside my window. So it would be great.
You like to have a big phallic symbol and big dick outside your window? I bet you do, Sea Dog. I bet you do, Sea Dog.
Live there and be able to look at that every day, as long as the Lincoln Memorial is right around the corner, and by God it is. So that's exciting. Anyway, here we are, a day off on tour. Look who's here. It's the lovely Adrian Sky, and we are taking a nice stroll through the park, enjoying the day off and looking at all this. Another edition of Celebrity House Hunting, and I decided that I wanted to see the backside of my property, so it's not too shabby from the back. You know, I decided. I think I like it better.
Sea Dog getting it done.
I'm not crazy about all the attention it gets, because it is obviously like a pretty cool pad. But all I'm saying is I don't know that I really want all these people hanging outside when I'm trying to like sunbathe, but I do like the patriotic vibes. Very patriotic, although there is a bit of a rebellion going on right now. There's anger on both sides. Diet or non-diet, I think.
And there he is with his, his butterfly girl. Go away. This is Bob MMM59. Go away, Zero Talent. Stop acting like you have any. Feldman Durst 2024. Thank you. I'm lower than dirt. I'm the floor. Though I'm not I'm not you. What a blessing. Detroit, please. You fan. So happy for you and so glad for you finally got that awesome tour bus. Yay, glad you enjoyed your day off. Love your videos. Sending you love and hugs. Have an awesome show tonight. Enjoy that bus. Yay. Bro, you're a girl. Hey, Cory, sweet congrats on getting a new bus. Looks like you're having fun. Glad you got the new bus. Be safe. Oh, just watch out for the snipers. Dangerous area. Dundee, that hat, man. Dude, that hat, man. Can I have it? Have fun in DSC. So this is, Cory's got it's got 3,000 likes, and I don't know how many views. So this was kind of interesting.
Don't move.
Bleeding?
Oh my God.
No, no, no.
Oh my God.
Please.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
No.
Oh my. Oh my God.
Is that my ear?
Yeah.
No.
It is.
No. No.
Yeah. You're fine.
That's pretty brutal. It's a pretty brutal prank, but you know what? It's young Donald Trump there. So this thing happened. So here's these guys. I forget this guy's name, whatever his name is. You'll see him. You'll recognize him.
That's the cutting. And then I would do the same. Now we've mixed our blood.
That's right.
I want you to be this way every time you take communion, and you ought to take it a lot. A lot.
Yes, sir.
Now his blood is in my body.
Yes, sir.
It's in there. His blood is mixed with my blood.
What the fuck? They mixed their blood with cranberry. They mixed their blood with cranberry juice. Brought to you by Ocean Spray. So they cut themselves and bled into some Ocean Spray cranberry juice and drank each other's blood. And that was just like, I mean, what is going on, right? One day, English will kill us. Crocodiles do not swim here. Crocodiles do not swim here. Excellent meme. Doctor without hearing aid couldn't hear colonoscopy patient scream, Florida board says. So he was given a colonoscopy to one of his patients, and the guy started to scream because he wasn't doing it correctly. And because he didn't have his hearing aid, he didn't know, and the guy was in pain. And he's happened a couple of times, and the guy's got a $7,500 fine. But, that's not going to get it done. Like, the guy should not be practicing medicine. Aliens might be living among us disguised as human beings or in a base inside the moon, according to new Harvard study. Aliens might be living among us, according to a new Harvard study, a Harvard academic study. A new paper suggests extraterrestrials could also be living underground or on a base in the moon. So that's your, Harvard working for you, right? I want to expand on this, though, here. Okay, so in this voiceover at the end of the video, I want to go back to what I was saying earlier about religion and then also tie this to extraterrestrials. Now, I said this before, and it's in my book, The Choice. The best way to invade a foreign planet is to have souls from your planet, from your whatever it is, incarnate into that planet. And, it's not like your souls are necessarily tied to a planet, right? Although, in many cases they are. But if you incarnate, a group of souls, an invading group of nefarious aliens, and they could remake the planet so it would be easy to inhabit, right? The they live type situation is to remake the planet into your planet. And that's kind of what's happening here. There's soul energy from different regions of the etheric world. There's soul energy that incarnates, in. And that's why you resonate with some groups of people. You have soul families. And you're connected to some people, and then some people you have no connection to. And so even though people all look the same and, we have the same physical bodies and, similar, whatever it is, we have trouble connecting with people because of the nature of our soul and the intentions that are there. And there's, souls here from all over the They Live, model of the movie They Live, where the soul's incarnated as human beings, right? And then, they try to create the same kind of environment and atmosphere they had on their planet. And so that's one way to look at it. Now, when you think about, mobilizing a military force, like bringing all your weapons over, like America had to do for the Iraq War, it costs a fortune. I mean, just the fuel alone, and then all the weapons. In Afghanistan, America left $80 billion worth of equipment in Afghanistan because it's cost prohibitive to bring it back as a used equipment, and so they just left it there. And the Afghanistan government now has all this leftover military equipment, and so mobilizing a military force from one continent to the other, where you have to fly and ship everything over. Of course, shipping takes forever, right? To ship something all the way to the Middle East with these giant ships carrying cargo takes months. And so airlifting all this equipment and all your weapons over is a big problem. And that's why, wars are so expensive. And so imagine invading a planet where you have to, bring everything over in spaceships and things. And then the time you get to that planet, you realize you can't breathe the atmosphere and, all the issues that would be there, right? And so invading a planet is difficult, and it's, it takes forever to, the amount of time travel from one inhabitable planet to another. So the best way to invade a planet is through this, soul energy, by having your souls come in, souls from a negative planet or something, that, invasive planet, incarnate over on Earth. So that would be, one theory out there that I think is, fairly logical. But the reason why people don't believe in extraterrestrials is the same reason they have an issue with God. And it's the European, American, Christian people that have the biggest problems with both extraterrestrials and God, especially Americans, because we think we're the most powerful force in the universe. That's how we've been indoctrinated as American people. And there is a fear of God, is the same as there's a fear of aliens, that there's beings that are higher than developed than us. And human beings thinking that we're the most developed creatures in the universe, and we're the top of the evolutionary chain, I would be, dumbfounded and freaked out by the limitations and how, immature and how, undeveloped we are, right? And that's one of the reasons we suck so bad, because we think we're the best, manifest destiny, and that we're God's representative, and we're made in God's image, and we're just getting it done. And the egos that are there, and the Western ego, and this is globally, but particularly for Americans and Europeans, and the most for Americans, our egos won't let us believe that there's something higher or superior that can tell us what to do, right? Like once you become an adult, you can do whatever you want, kind of thing. This is why we have a problem with authority. And because we have a problem with authority, we have a problem with God. Master Charji, the third master of Sajamarg's system, he said this brilliant thing when he came to America. He said that Christians are scared of God. That's why they have the Son. They have God's Son. It's like you're scared of the boss, so you go to your boss's son. Hey, can you talk to the boss for me, right? Because you can talk to the boss's son because he's not as intimidating as the boss. And people are scared of God. And I've been well aware of it here in America. People have divinity within them, and that's what I'm responding to that comment, right? People have God within them, but they're scared of the divinity within them, right? Because it means their egos are going to have to submit and admit that they're not, they're going to have to admit at first that they're not the top of the food chain, and they're not all that. You're just an ego that's going in the wrong direction, and you have to give up a lot of your power and your ability to choose to do the wrong thing. Obsessed with your freedom to choose the wrong thing. That's what freedom is. Your freedom to choose against God's will. And people are obsessed with their freedom. Don't take away my freedoms. Well, don't you want to be? Well, don't you want to be what God wants you to be? No, fuck that, right? I want to have my freedoms. People in America and Europe and these other, I mean, globally, but particularly here with the egos that are developed, don't want to submit to a higher authority and don't want to give up their freedoms because of it, right? They want to submit to your soul. Your ego has hijacked your soul's purpose, and you're living your egotistical, pursuits, and it's far away from your soul's journey. And so this is the same thing with aliens, right? Like if they're higher developed beings, then all this bullshit that they're telling you, then America isn't shit. Like America's nothing because it's just, if there's other people that are farther developed than us and have more developed advanced technology, then they can just come in and impose their will and say, America's done, right? Like we don't have any, we're the big bullies on the block until somebody else that shows up that's more advanced. And so this is the big problem with our, the upbringing and indoctrination that we've been given as Americans and, as people living at this particular time thinking that we're all that, right? And we're not. Like we're just, like hopefully we're in the beginning, right? Like we're not at the end. We're at the beginning because we're at the end and this is it, then like it sucks, right? Like if this is the pinnacle of evolution, human beings are the pinnacle of evolution, then God help the universe, right? If we're the top of the food chain, if we're the best that could be produced, then like if there's not a lot more, if we're not infants, if we're not babies, but we're like ancient beings, we're like the most developed. We're at the end of the thing, not at the beginning. Then God help us all. The only things I could say is we're at the beginning, and we're just learning and we're just developing to use these higher capacities to create and our abilities, right? That we're a very young experimental race that's been brought to us, brought together by test tubes and genetic manipulation, and that we're not really used to higher levels of consciousness, which I've experienced through meditation and things like this, and that just flirting with it. And that, when we are able to rise up to our full potential, we'll be so much better than we are now. Like, that's the only hope, right? And I believe in that. Like, that's the hope for humanity, that we're at the beginning. And as we get our shit together, we'll be better than we are now. I mean, let's pray for that. Like, let's hope that's the case. Because if we're the end, if we're, at the, the end of the journey, then fuck, right? Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paramano, definitely pointing for the apocalypse. And the ascension, everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.